provide flank support for 2nd Battalion. They're attacking a village at, I don't know what time of the night it was. So that's what happened. Well, I had taken my shoes and leggings off and placed them outside. Didn't take them into the blanket with me, and here it is. It's below zero. So when the captain said, "Get ready," I'm trying to get my feet into boots that were starting to freeze up and leggings that definitely had frozen. And I finally get back to the company. They're at the edge of the woods, and we have to cross downhill, uphill, and into the woods again. At the bottom of the dip is a stream of water. I'll tell you how smart I was. I get to the water and I say, "Gee, if I step in that water, I ought to soften my shoes, don't you think?" The next morning, the company medic came and he told each of us to take our shoes and socks off. And he told me to rub my feet until they turned pink. They were white, and he was afraid I'd have frostbite. I don't know what we did the rest of that day. And the next memory I have is, well, this is already the 23rd. So on the 25th, we are outside the village of Eschdorf, Luxembourg, and we're waiting for the cooks and the mess sergeant to bring up Christmas Day meal. He arrives with turkey and all the trimmings. And I sit down on the log, and I'm on one end of the log, and the other end of the log is a dead German. After we eat, we mount tanks, and we enter the village. Well, this village had been attacked during the night by our 2nd Battalion and had driven the Germans out, so we didn't have anything to fight. We had no Germans to fight. We're in Eschdorf perhaps a day or a day and a half, and we're in houses. Civilians have all left the place. I'm outside. I decided I wanted to go outside and see what's doing. And the general of the division drives up. Well, he was a passenger in his Jeep. And he sees me, I walk over and I salute him. And he says to me, and I quote, "Son," he says, "you'll feel a lot better if you shave." I should have asked him to come into the house, take a look at our fixings. We had no heat, we had no hot water, and shaving really, I didn't think was necessary. I didn't wear a tie either. Okay, we leave this place and we go and we do other combat, and I have no recollection at all. I have here what's called Action Report Against the Enemy. And I looked at all of the days in which I was in combat, and it did not stir any memory. Of course, these reports are not very detailed. Well, if you read them, you'll see what I'm talking about. Well, we wound up in Wiltz. We wound up at our objective. We cut the road between Wiltz, Luxembourg, and Bastogne. The Germans did not know we were there. And the first afternoon we were there, they sent some army vehicle of theirs came on the road, and we had two replacements were assigned to be the bazooka team. They had never fired a bazooka. As God would will it, the bazooka they fired disabled that vehicle. Well, that night, I had my mortar crew with me. We were in between B company and C company, my company. And I took my last smoke and I look out and I see two figures in the snow walking. I had never been overtaken by emotion as I was at that moment. I wanted to kill those two guys in the best possible way I could. I emptied my carbine. I didn't hit any of them, either one of them, I mean. They heard the shots, and that directed them to my hole. One guy was so happy that he wanted to hug me. I had my carbine up, and when his belly hit the barrel, he backed off. These two guys must have been in their 40s or early 50s, and they did not want to fight. So I took them to the captain's hole, and I came back. The next morning I wake up, and I see that the carbine magazine is lying on the ground. Here I took him to the captain, and I had no ammunition to protect myself with. Okay, we're there a couple of days, and then we start moving out again, and we start fighting, and I have no recollection. No, absolutely no memory of what I did, where we were, how desperate the situation was, whether it was desperate. And frankly, that continued until April 15, 1945, when I was transferred to the military police platoon and assigned to guard German prisoners of war. In one of the camps, I saw my first and only Muslim soldier in the German army. And he had removed his prayer rug from his knapsack, laid it on the ground, got down on his hands and knees, and started his afternoon prayers, and his comrades were all snickering. He was the only one I ever saw. And I served in a very large prisoner of war camp, and I never saw another one. So the war ended in what was in a small community in Austria, for me, Eibenschlegel, Austria. The communities were so small that to be noticed, they had to combine their names. And they were a kilometer or so apart. The night that the Germans surrendered, we had blackout curtains on our windows. And I looked at them and I said, do we really need them? And I made a move to remove them, and then I took a step back and I said, no, you can take them off. And I pulled them off, and it was a very good feeling to know that the war in this part of the world was over. We were in Austria for a while. I don't remember how long, but in late July, we motored back to Germany, and we were undergoing training, and eventually we would have been sent to the Pacific. Well, the atomic bombs dropped in Nagasaki and Hiroshima, and so that was over, and we were assigned occupation duty in Austria. In Austria, we wound up in Linz, Austria, a major city, heavily bombed by our Air Force because there were Hermann Goering chemical works, and they had to be destroyed, which they were. It was also a railroad center. It was there that I met survivors of the Holocaust. I was at my desk in the Linz, Austria police station when the door opened and 3 men walked in. 2 of them had been in Mauthausen concentration camp, and they were holding onto the arms of a former camp guard whom they had recognized walking in downtown Linz. And we turned him over to Allied military government, and the one boy took a liking to me and invited me to visit him at this DP camp, displaced persons camp, which I did. I became friendly with him, and I, through my father, helped locate relatives of this fella, and they were successful in having him brought to the United States in 1947. I met a family and I became friendly with them. I located their relatives in Los Angeles, and the same thing happened. They came over at or about the same time as my friend. We had a nice reunion. We stayed in Austria until October of 1945, when we went to Camp Pittsburgh in France, preparatory to going home. We set sail from Marseille, I think it was the week of Christmas, and Christmas occurred for us on the high seas. We landed in Newport News. I believe it was either December 31 or January 1. Anyway, I called my parents, who said they waited for this phone call because they had read in a newspaper that the 26th Division was coming home. Anyway, I was sent to the Indianapolis Gap. Indian Town Gap, yes. That's where I was discharged, and then I went home that day and became a civilian. Are there any questions? Yes, sir.
What did you do after you got out?
Beg pardon?
What did you do after you got discharged?
Oh.
After
discharge, I re-enrolled at Ohio State, and I got my degree in 1940-something, 49 I think it was. I went to work for my father, who owned a furniture store, and I fell in love, and we got married in 1951, and we moved to Denver, Colorado, where my wife finished up her college work and got a job in California teaching, and I entered UCLA there and got my engineering degree in 1956.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
What sort of degree? What engineering degree?
It was in general engineering. The dean of the UCLA engineering school had conducted a study of engineering graduates 5 years after graduation. What engineering were they doing? And he found out that the bulk of them were not doing the engineering for which they received their degree. So he instituted a program where you got a smattering over the realm of engineering. And it really worked out better. Yes.
Do you mind if I ask you a question what you stated earlier?
Go right ahead.
You mentioned leggings, leggings, but at the time we had the boots with the strap. the single strap, not the leggings were eliminated.
I didn't get those until after the bulge.
Yeah, well, but we got them earlier because the damn buckle, when you made the night patrol, they would tingle. And at night, when everything is quiet, you could just make a little noise and you could hear it all over.
Yeah.
But you said you had the leggings. You
This,
had-
yes, I want to tell you a little story,
Go ahead.
short one. We heard that there were shoe packs available. A shoe pack was a boot that you could wear out in the snow and the mud, and it would keep your feet nice and dry and warm. We were issued the shoe packs after the Battle of the Bulge ended, and prior to a night ride in an open truck to a new location. Well, the next day, we had to turn the shoe packs in. We had no need for them because we were in a climate where there was no snow. Funny. Yes.
You mentioned prior that you had not been paid in a while, so when you were discharged and then you said you went to college, did you have money? Were you paid? How did you pick, like, how did everybody pick themselves up and go forward without money? Or did you
I think
depend on your family?
I had discharged, I was given $300. And that took care of train costs. But I was paid later on. I didn't, I got my 2 months pay the next payday. So I got 3 months pay in 1 day and 1 month.
Murray, did you have carbines or the M1?
I had an M1 as a rifleman.
Yeah.
I was an assistant BAR man at that time.
Oh, BAR.
But I got a carbine when I became a sergeant.
Okay.
And a carbine was a lousy weapon
Oh, but it's a firepower.
because it was small
Yeah,
and
I know.
worthless.
I think the
You
M1.
couldn't hit a fly with it.
I didn't.
I was
Yep.
with the 80th Division, we fought alongside of each other.
Yes.
Because many of the towns that you had mentioned, we either liberated or conquered them.
Yeah. Esher, LeSueur.
Mhm.
I don't know if you went through that town.
Nancy, Metz, the Moselle,
Oh, that's, yeah.
yeah, Luxembourg, yeah. I grew a beard also, and we had a little time off in Luxembourg, and I went to a barber shop there, and a female cut my hair. It felt like $1 million. No place to go.
So we're in Germany, and as I told you, we were going to train there, and I decide to get a shave. So I go to the local barber, and he's got a 15-year-old boy who he's training to be a barber. And I'm sitting there like this, and he's got this razor. I said, I hope his family did not suffer because of the Americans.
And one thing you could mention is, you know, when you were battling, your clothes stunk because you didn't change them. And we had the wool uniform, and that stunk like mad. And when we were in a particular place in Czechoslovakia, a woman took my clothes, washed them, and dried them in the sun, and waited for me to get a change of clothes. But you could mention the fact that the ODs were not the best uniform to wear.
We were required to write the last 4 numbers of our Army serial number on each piece of clothing. So I wore this shirt from October until December, and with 1 washing in between. But by the time I took the shirt off in Metz, there was a black line on the collar like this. I didn't want to be misidentified if I were killed. And then I said, oh, to hell with it. My underwear has my number.